Going on to topic 4 of chapter 8. Here we're going to take a look at some word problems, applications, and they could involve quadratic equations. And we could solve it, remember, by completing the square, factoring, or the quadratic formula. And we'll get a chance to look at some of these here. All right, Cade traveled 48 miles at a certain speed. That speed is his rate. If he had gone 4 miles an hour faster, the trip would have taken 1 hour less. So find Cade's average speed. Now, when you have a word problem like this, you might say, what is your strategy? Well, I think that part of the strategy should be to make a little chart to organize our data. And as you see, we're making a chart. And I probably could have made some of these a little bit bigger, but we need 3 categories. And you might say, how come 3? Because the formula we're going to use is distance equals rate times time. And we're going to start filling this chart in here. So he did 48 hours in both, 48 miles in both cases. So 48 and 48. That's our distance. Now for our rate, we don't know that. And for this time, we're saying it's t. That's just driving regularly. 48 miles altogether at a certain rate times a certain amount of time. Now, had he gone 4 miles an hour faster, well, here he had his regular rate, which is r, plus 4. That's his rate. It's his regular rate plus 4 miles an hour faster. His time would have been 1 hour less. So there's his time above, and it's 1 hour less. So here we have our data worked into our chart here. And now we try to make an equation out of this here. And we know that distance equals rate times time. Now, what would rate equal? Because I don't know if you noticed here, we have 2 variables. Well, rate is going to equal distance divided by time. Okay, so what is our rate for this one? Well, it's going to be 48 divided by time. This one is that. This is what r is. Now, what is r here? Well, it's going to be r plus 4 is going to equal, this is r plus 4 is my rate, and that's what I'm setting this up as. Here the rate is distance divided by time. There's our distance divided by time. So our rate here, even though it's r plus 4, that's what we're putting there, is going to be distance Now our time here is going to be t minus 1. Now if we wanted to solve this equation just for the letter r, what would we do with this 4 hours? Well, we would transpose it. And over here it'd become a negative 4. Ah. So now we have rate and rate. So this is one rate. That's what that r is. And this r is the same. And it's this rate over here. So we can set up an equation which is 48 over t minus 1 minus 4 equals this rate, which is 48 over t. And now you might say, how many variables do we have? We only have one. Ah, that's good news. So now, what do we want to do? Well, we want to solve for r here. Or I should say in this case, that comes later. We want to solve first for t. Now, what is t? Well, t is, what's my common denominator? So let's change colors here. I have to multiply this equation by t and t minus 1. That is my common denominator. So here I get 48t, because these will cancel out with that, and I get 48t. Now here, I'm going to actually, I was writing with my mouse and I tried to get my pen working. I have it working now. So here, this is our common denominator, and we're going to cancel this out with this, and we're just going to go t times 48, which is 48t. Now what I did is I multiplied this and got t squared and a negative t, because now for this term I have to multiply a negative 4 times t squared, which gives me a negative 4t squared, and then a negative t times a negative 4 give me a positive 4t. Okay, now there's my equal sign. I'm on the other side. I'm going to cancel out this t now with this t over there, and I'm left with this. So I get 48 times t is 48t. 48 times a negative 1 gives me a negative 48. Okay? Now what I'm going to do is group like terms. Okay, as we work this now, I multiplied through. I got this, collecting like terms. Now I see a 48t on this side, 48t on that side. I can just subtract those out. Now I want to have my t squared positive, so I'm going to move it over to this side. That becomes a positive 4t squared. I'm going to move this over to this side. It becomes a negative 4t. And then on this side already is a negative 48. And I'm going to put the 0 there instead of over on this side. Going to divide everything by 4. So this will become a 12. This is then t squared minus t minus 12 equals 0. And I see this can factor easily. So I'm going to factor that. And I need a negative in the middle, so there's a 4. So I get t equals negative 3, or t equals 4. Now, time is not negative. We can't go back in time, so that's our erroneous solution. So t is 4. But they're not asking for what is time. They're asking for average speed, which is going to be rate. Well, if I go to this equation, the first one, and I say my time is 4, I want to solve for rate again. Rate is going to be distance divided by time. I know my time is 4, so 48 divided by 4, my rate is 12 miles per hour. And we've been at this for 11 minutes, and I've shut it down a little bit to write stuff out. So it takes a while to do it, figuring out a strategy. Word problems always take a little time. Now, when they did it a little differently than us, or than what I did. Now, the chart is exactly the same, and they got this over here. Now, notice they have, this is their rate, but if you want to solve for the letter R, here, this R, you have to put that positive 4 on the other side, like I did. It becomes a negative 4 there. And here are our two rates. We have this rate, R, and again, bringing this over to this side becomes a negative 4. Now what they did is they kept the rate, instead of having it on this side where it was a negative, as we had it, somehow they put it over on that side, which is okay. They're just transposing it, and it might be easier to have a positive in there, but the way we did it is perfectly fine, because they're going to multiply every term by the common denominator, get rid of all the fractions, as they indicate here, and they get this. They're going to multiply through, get that. They're going to combine like terms, put it in standard form, and that's what we had. I'm assuming they're going to divide everything by 4. Yep, they're dividing everything by 4. They're going to factor this, exactly. And they're putting the negative 4 there, that's fine. And then here, this is where t is 4. Here t is a negative 3. They're going to reject that one. So they discard the negative 3. They use the 4. So divide by 4 right there for time. And that gives us 12, which is our rate, as we had. Okay. And if you check it, it works out fine. So Cade traveled at 12 miles per hour. Now, in some cases, they're going to ask you to solve for formulas. We did some of this before, and we want to solve for n. Now notice, how could we possibly solve for n here? Well, we have to get n all by itself. So let's develop a strategy. Well, the first thing we have to do is get the n's out. So we're going to multiply both sides by 2, and we get then 2d, and this is gone now, and we have here n squared minus 5n. We got rid of the 1/2 by multiplying both sides by 2. Okay, so we want to solve for n. Well, this is a quadratic, and the only way we know how to solve quadratics where they don't factor very well is to put it in standard form. Be a 0 on this side, n squared minus 5n minus, now as we transpose that, to d. Well, we have a quadratic equation now, and we're going to solve for n by using the quadratic formula, where a is 1, b is a -5, and c now is a -2d. Okay, let's see this worked out here. We gave you the material to work it. We multiplied both sides by 2, transpose this, and now we're going to solve for n. And by substituting this into the quadratic formula, which is what they've done here, eventually you get that n is this. And is that okay to leave it like this? Yes, because we can't do anything. Now, if they gave us a value for d, we could put that d right in there, multiply it by 8, add it to 25, take the square root of it, and then add 5 to it, divide by 2, subtract this from the 5, then divide by 2, and that would be our answers. Okay? And that'll wrap this up.